it's just like, we're all like grinding on our last nerve. And the Ford rep comes up to me and he's like, what is actually going on here? What's happening? Why is this so wrong right now? And I was honest with him. You guys, some of your designs are not working. We reduce a couple, 2-3 more weeks, nothing, just crickets. And I'm like, Rob, what's happening? How can we not be getting any offers at all? That attitude just doesn't fly, man. I can't live with that. So we finally sold it. I lost a few $1,000s and I just like never used him for anything again. We joined 7-figure flipping. We were in a contest to see who could get to $1 million first. We just supercharged it. We got to $1 million in like 10 months. We won the contest because we were just scaling like crazy. Institutional investors, that's a huge no-go. Like they cannot take you seriously if you do that, because the possibility of fraudulent activities is significantly higher. If they're going to give you $20 million and you're going to tell me you don't have a arm's length third party who's going to be looking over your shoulder at the very least, like, I'm not giving you that money.
What's up? Welcome back to Diehard Entrepreneur Stories. I am your host, Devin Ramos, and today I sit down to interview Mike Simmons. After spending over a decade building and owning a 7-figure house flipping and wholesaling company, Mike recently exited by successfully selling out his ownership. In true diehard entrepreneur fashion, Mike didn't stop there, and he went on to co-found Express Hard Money, a real estate hard money lending company. Today, we talk about the ups and downs of owning a residential real estate company, what it's like raising capital from family offices and institutional lenders versus what we know with high net worth individuals. It's packed with some great stories and even better insights. You're going to want to stay tuned. And without further ado, here's Mike. All right, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. Good to talk to you.
It's good to have you on. I look forward to catching up. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it has been. We normally see each other quite a bit, but I didn't go to the last event. So it's been, half a year probably at least. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate your setup here.
You like
the
it?
Studio and the mic and everything. Is that a Cowboys helmet in the background there?
Yeah, definitely a Cowboys helmet. Yeah.
See, I learn something new every day. You're a Cowboys fan. I didn't know this.
I'm a big enough fan that I put it behind right next to my head in all my interviews. So yeah,
yes,
I'm a huge
seriously.
I'm an older guy. Okay. So like in the 70s and in early 80s, they were awesome. Like they were great. Right. Okay. And that's kind of when I got hooked in. Then the 90s, obviously like team of the decade, 3 Super Bowls. That was
Dream
awesome.
team.
And it's been awful though since like the late 90s. I think it's just been brutal to be a Cowboys fan. But what are you going to do? I'm pretty much convinced whoever you become a fan of when you're a kid, you're just locked in. Like that's just come hell or high water. That's who you're going to root for.
That's funny you say that because I think it's so true. So I'm not necessarily a Cowboys fan. In all honesty, I watch like action sports, extreme sports. I don't watch a lot of like ball sports. But my dad, for whatever reason, my dad was a Cowboys fan, and I grew up in the 90s. So I was a 90s Cowboys fan, and like I still am. Yeah. I watched Emmitt Smith, Deion Sanders, Troy Aikman kill it. All of them kill it. Yeah. And so it's funny, but it's good to hear you're not just a 90s era fan. You're
no. I mean, I wish I was. I would be your age if I was only a 90s fan. But I remember when they were good in the 70s. They were awesome in the 70s and early 80s. I was, Tony Dorsett, Roger Staubach. Like I'm from that era too. Man. So yeah,
very cool.
My whole life, man.
Cool. I'm just glad you're not a Lions fan, man.
Well, the first time in the history of, I shouldn't say of their history, they were good in the 50s, but in the first time in the last 75 years, they're actually worth rooting for. But yeah, I know I'm the Lions. I like when they do well. Like I can appreciate, I'm from Michigan. So yeah, I like when they do well, but I'm not wearing their jersey or anything, but yeah, it's fine. I like when they do well. It's good for the city.
Yeah, I just kid because just like I joke with my wife, I gotta joke with you.
That's right. Is she like a sports fan at all? Does she like the Lions or Tigers or anybody?
No, not really. She's a Thanksgiving game day. She'll watch the Super Bowl. She'll watch certain games like that, and just because she grew up in Michigan as well. She's a Lions fan, like through that. But like, she's also a Tennessee Titans fan because of where we live now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. You guys have some optimism this year with your first round draft pick. That's good.
That's right. Yeah. So is my youngest. It was funny. You mentioned you're a fan of what you grew up in. My youngest is a Titans fan, and I'm just like, he's the biggest Titans fan out of all of us. And I'm just like, it's the oddest thing ever. But
and he always will be, probably. Like, he'll just kind of grow up, and unless you guys move soon, like who's gonna be ingrained in him, right? That's who he's gonna be into.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's how it works. It didn't work that way for me. I mean, I was a Cowboys fan since I was a kid, but I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I lived in the Detroit area my whole life. It wasn't like I moved from Texas, you know what I mean? But then it goes down to like looking up to your older brother. And so I looked up to my older brother, and I don't know why he was a Cowboys fan, to be honest with you, but he was a Cowboys fan. And I'm like, oh, my older brother's a Cowboys fan. I'm a Cowboys fan because I want to be like him, right? So that's kind of how it started.
Very cool. Cool. Yeah. Well, aside from growing up in Michigan, Mike, what led to you getting into business and entrepreneurship, and why are you doing what you're doing now instead of like the traditional path?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's the thing is with me, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a middle to lower middle class, income family. Like, Dad worked at Ford. My mom was a hairstylist, like, not crazy money, but we weren't poor necessarily. But nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. Like, there was no example there of entrepreneurship in my family. The recipe and the plan that was set out for me was graduate high school, you go to college, and you go get a job. But really, the undercurrent of that was graduate high school. We would like for you to go to college, but if for some reason you don't, you get into a union company like the auto workers or something, right? Like, get a secure job with a guaranteed check and benefits and retirement, right? That was like really what they wanted for me. They would have been ecstatic if I worked for Ford. And I tried to get into Ford, but back in the 80s, getting into Ford was like getting the Willy Wonka's golden ticket. Like, it just most people couldn't. It was very hard to get in. And so I went to community college. Skipped most of my classes, didn't try in the other ones, basically flunked out of community college. And I didn't even go to class. Like, I just flunked out because I didn't show up. I would pay the money, not show up. And I wouldn't even do a withdrawal to get my money back. I was just like, just didn't care. I didn't want to be there. So I would go and sleep in my car. I'd like just do whatever, just dumb stuff. So, but not long after high school and while I was in community college, I got a job at UPS. UPS is Teamsters. It's a union, right? It's got benefits and all this. So my parents were ecstatic. They didn't care at all that I quit college because I was at UPS. Started working there. I was about 23 years old. Just one day wrecked my back, like just wrecked it. I felt and heard the noise in my back, because I was just lifting heavy things. And, they show you training videos. This is how you lift properly, like with your knees and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, the amount of work, the volume and the speed, it's impossible to do it right. It's this weird, UPS has this weird scam of, we showed you the training video, you signed off that you understood, now we're going to make it impossible. Like, there's no way you can follow those instructions and get the job done. So anyways, hurt my back. I was going to the chiropractor 3 times a week as a 24-year-old man, just so I could get out of bed in the morning, just so I could get out of bed. And my job was to lift packages. Like, I knew I wasn't going to retire from UPS. I physically wasn't going to be able to do it. And so got a job in an automotive supplier company in like inside sales, sitting at a desk, like no big deal. And honestly, the first company I went to, my brother worked there. He got me the job, my older brother, right? I'm working with my older brother. The company is a bunch of like 20s and early 30 something guys. It's doing well. It's fun. Every day when I go in, it's a blast. We're just having a blast, right? But we're doing work, getting it done. I'm like, I'm going to work here forever. So didn't go to college. Didn't think I needed it, whatever. Anyways, long story, but fast forward, I ended up leaving that company because the income potential, once I realized having fun at work wasn't all that mattered, like getting paid and like having enough money to raise a family was, because by this time that I left at like 25, I had 2 kids and a house and it's like, I needed income. And so I ended up bouncing around to a couple other companies in the same kind of niche, like automotive steel prototype, kind of an automotive world. And then finally, around 2000, everyone who was alive then knows what happened, but a lot of companies started struggling. The automotive industry really tanked, and a lot of people were getting let go and fired and all this stuff. And I started looking around the landscape, and I'm like, I don't have a degree. I've only been doing what I'm doing right now after I left UPS for like 3 or 4 years. There are guys with like 10, 15 years that are getting fired and let go, and they're not finding jobs. I'm like, it was an epiphany I had. I said, I was just thinking to myself, if I were on the market today, like back then, if I was on the market, I wouldn't even hire me because I don't have a degree and I don't have enough experience. Like there's too many people out there that have great experience or a degree. Like I'm not hireable. And it scared me because I felt like I was doing a tightrope act without a net. Like this is fine while I have a job, but if I get let go tomorrow, I may not find another job because people much better I knew people that I worked with that were like, could do circles around me with what they knew, and they couldn't find a job when they got let go. Right. Geez. I was only keeping my job, by the way, because I was low paid. Right. So I'm low paid with no experience and no education. Like I'm super expendable. And if I got fired, I would never be able to find a job. So I decided at like 32, it took me a couple of years to hit this realization, but I realized I got to go back to school. I need a degree. I need something that makes me marketable. So I went back, got my degree, and I landed a job where I doubled my income. Right as I got my degree, I applied at some places, got a job, doubled my income, like the day after I got my degree. Wow. I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. International company, like, billions of dollars in revenue. It's like, I'm going to be here forever. Like there's a million places I can go, lateral, upward mobility, all this stuff. Right. And so I kind of set my sight on some positions in the company that I thought that's kind of what I want to do. I think that's where I want to be that guy in 5 or 10 years. Right. Mm-hmm. I worked at this place for, I ended up working there 8 years, but after like 3 or 4 or 5 years, I started realizing, the guys that I want to replace, they hate their life, and they apparently hate their family because they never see them, and they're stressed, and they're like popping, Tums and all this stuff because they've got, health problems, and they're miserable to talk to, and they overdrink, and they're the worst, right? They just had the worst lives. And I'm like, that's what I'm aspiring to? That's awful. And so I started doing some math and like, well, what if I don't get their job and I kind of stay in this job? Cost of living raises, if I get those, like how long until I can retire and what kind of life can I have? And I started doing some of that financial planning that people do like in their early to mid 30s when you start thinking about retirement, right? And what I came up with was, and I'm no mathematician, but I pretty much had to work the rest of my life, and I would never have enough money to retire. Realistically, I just wouldn't. On the trajectory I was on, I never could retire. So I'm like, okay, I can do something else. And I started thinking about, stocks and trading and, trying to do stuff in the stock market. And so, we were chatting a bit before we hopped on, and I just told you, and this about me, I think anyway, I don't like details. I don't like paperwork. I don't like that kind of stuff. And so when you're trying to learn about the stock market and stocks and how to buy and sell and all this stuff, it's like going back to school. It's like learning insurance, or you know what I mean? It's horrible to learn that stuff if you don't love it. Right. And I didn't love it. And so I started wandering when I was like investing, stocks and investing, and just you start going down the investing Google rabbit hole, and eventually you hit real estate investing. And I did. Nice. And I started listening to success stories, and then I got all jazzed up on success stories. Like, I couldn't get enough. Like, what did this person do? What did that person do? And that was back in like 2003 when that happened. And I just kind of hit paralysis analysis. I started overthinking it a little bit. And I was a little bit afraid to make a mistake. I didn't have a lot of money. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just keep learning and reading and listening to podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And 5 years later, I hadn't done a damn thing, like nothing. And my personality type really is action oriented. I really normally am. But I think what I was worried about was doing it, failing, and then having to face my family and my friends. And I failed. Like I tried it and I failed. Right. And so if you don't start, you can't fail. Right. I mean, you do fail if you don't start. It's a form of failure, but But what my mind was, I guess, if I didn't start, I couldn't fail. And so 5 years in, I hit rock bottom at work. I said I worked at that company, an international company, for 8 years. So you fast forward, I was there already a couple of years. You fast forward another 5 years, and it's 8 years I'm there, right? It's about the same time frame. Yeah. I'm like, I hit rock bottom. And I can tell you, I remember the exact day that I hit the bottom and realized I have to do something. Now, I did start, after 5 years, I started doing a few flips, and I was like half-heartedly doing it. I was only making a couple of $1,000s. Like I was barely breaking even kind of thing. And I wasn't doing a good job of it. And then, but I was working my way up the company. Like I was getting more responsibilities. I was getting raises. Like I was doing well. I was respected. And at some point I was running a team, a prototype assembly team. We assembled seats, basically steel seats. We didn't make the parts. We had the parts made elsewhere. They all come in and my team assembles them. And then we crash them and just check them for engineering, structural integrity and all that. So I was running this team. We were working with a client that is a well-known automotive manufacturer who I used to not say the name because I was like, well, I probably shouldn't say the name. But at some point I was like, screw it. I'll say the name. It was Ford. I own a Ford. Like I've always owned Ford cars. My dad worked for Ford. I have a Raptor right now outside getting detailed, but my gosh, were they awful to work for as a supplier. They were just so miserable. So I'm there at night. I'm running this team. We had been there late, like 12-hour, 14-hour days for some guys. We were there late all week. This was a Friday now. We're at a Friday. We have a problem. Obviously, we're trying to work through it. That's why we're working overtime. There's some issues with the build. It's not going together well. So the client shows up that night and they're on site and they're like overseeing what we're doing, which is never a good situation. You know what I mean? Like the guy is more stressed when they're trying to build with the client right over their shoulder. But that's the situation we were in. The guy was there and we were going through, it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It's just like, we're all like grinding on our last nerve. And the Ford rep comes up to me and he's like, what is actually going on here? What's happening? Why is this so wrong right now? And I was honest with him. I mean, there was some shared blame for sure. We get all of our engineering designs and all of our like CAD designs from Ford. Like that's who supplies them. Then we send them out for bid and we have suppliers make the physical parts. They come back to us. We assemble them, right? So we had some suppliers that manufactured the parts incorrectly for sure, but there were some design issues that they were manufactured correctly. And then once we started putting them together, like this isn't working, you go back to the CAD, right? It's computer aided design. And you go, well, okay, so the design is flawed. We have a flawed design here, right? And so I told him, I said, it's a little bit of shared blame here. Like for sure, we had some people make parts wrong, for sure, right? We're not blameless, but you guys, some of your designs are not working. Like they don't, it's called interference fit, tolerance and things. So it just wasn't working. And this guy was like, I'm only 5'8", and this guy's like 5'5", right? He's a little guy. He steps right into my face. Like, when you were a kid, you knew you were going to get into a fight because a guy just stepped way too close and he was like mad at you. This guy got right in my grill and he's like, you are an effing liar. He didn't say effing, but he said the whole word. You're a liar, right? And I was like, whoa, I was blown away. Like I was being totally honest with him, like 100% honest. And I just got told I'm a liar to my face by a grown man. Like instincts are to just throw this guy through a window, but obviously he's the customer. I can't do it. So I'm like, I got myself out of the situation. I went to my boss who was there on site too, because this is a high profile issue we're having. And I said, Keith, Lane, this isn't working. These guys are burnt. They haven't seen their families. I haven't seen my family. Like we need to go home. We're not fixing this problem at 8 o'clock at night on a Friday. Right. And by the way, the customer is now, using obscenities and calling me a liar, and it just isn't productive. Like we're not being productive here. And he goes, you need to get your priorities straight. And I was like, whoa, because this is a guy, my boss, the guy, I liked him. We were friends. Like I really liked him. And he's like, your priorities are screwed up. You're thinking about going home. Like we got to fix this. We got to stay until it's done. Like you need to get your priorities straight. And I was like, oh man, this isn't going to work. And I was like, okay, I said, you're right. And I walked out. But what I meant was, my priorities are my wife and my daughters and my life and happiness. Like this company isn't my priority. Like I work here and I need to make a living. I get it. And I do my best when I'm here, but like, I'm not putting you in front of my family. Like if that's what you think. And so that day I just said, like, I started creating my escape plan. Like I'm going to get out of this and I've got to figure this out. And so I started doubling down on real estate, and, eventually my real estate income surpassed my income from my work. And at one point I just told my wife, I said, hey, listen, and she's super conservative, like financially conservative. She grew up poor, like objectively poor. And the thought of leaving a job was just unthinkable, right? Yeah. I said, listen, let's do the situation. And I said, listen, if I can put aside 1 year's salary from real estate earnings, right? If I can put away 1 year's salary, I want to leave my job. And at the time, it was a very healthy employment market. I knew I could get another job. I said, I'll put aside 1 year's salary. In 9 months, if we both agree this isn't working, that gives me, three more months to go out and find a job. So no, seamless, no problem, no dip in income. And she's like, if you put aside a year's salary, I'm totally behind that. It's totally fine. So I did put a year's salary aside, went out on my own, and I never looked back. It wasn't even close. Like I just started crushing it, right? Because I just needed to be able to focus on that full time. And like you're working 40 to 50 hours a week in a job and doing real estate for 5 to 10 hours. When you flip flop and you got 40, 50 hours, like, come on, what's the problem? And so some things went my way at that point too. Like I switched from my model from flipping to wholesaling, and I got into 7-figure flipping, and some things really started going into place. But yeah, I just started but I think I manifested some of that because I was looking to grow and I knew I needed help and all that. So yeah, so that from that point I started wholesaling and my business exploded. Like we just took off like a rocket. I took on a partner. I hired my sales guy to be my partner. I hired a sales guy and then brought him in as a partner around 2014, I think. And we just exploded, took off.
Yeah, man, it sounds like it. That's amazing. So you painted that picture over, it was like a 5-year period or so since you said, it sounded like you're kind of dabbling at first. You said you'd flipped a couple homes.
Yeah, I dabbled for like 4 years, probably, just like half-assed it kind of. I didn't think I was half-assed it, to be honest. I was doing it wrong. Like I was doing it like most new people do it, where I just had no systems, no processes. I was letting too many other people control the success of my business, like my realtor and my contractors. And I was kind of, like I said, reinventing the wheel. So I was out there like busting my butt, trying to do 1 or 2 flips. I couldn't do anymore because I was doing everything myself, right? Like I was making all the mistakes you make when you're not running your business like a business. And I thought I was doing everything I could, but I really wasn't. I was just doing a bad job of it.
Yeah. So what was it during that time that sort of got your attention? And then it sounds like you pivoted to wholesaling and then started actually building a business. Like, what do you remember what the thing was?
Yeah, I was still a flipper when I left my company. But what are you asking? What made me switch from being a flipper to a wholesaler? Like, why did I make that switch? Yeah.
Well, not just that, but like also start building a business, like go from, what you'd said is sort of like dabbling to like actually building something. Yeah.
So shortly after leaving the company that I was working for, the thing happened that made me switch to wholesaling. And the thing that made me switch, the trigger to switch to wholesaling was also the trigger that I've got to do this differently. Right. And so I'll tell you what happened. I was a house flipper. I was getting some leads, mostly MLS. I wasn't really marketing at all, but I was getting some leads, had some leads in the pipeline, and I was in the middle of a flip. I had a contractor that did all my deals. He handled all my, because I wasn't doing that many, honestly. I was like doing one every couple of 3 months or so. So he would do one, finish it, do the next one. So he was running my flip, and I had a realtor that I completely relied on for finding deals, comping deals, coming up with ARV, and then selling it, right? Like how much power does that person have when you give them all of that as a house flipper? Like they are your COO essentially, like they're running everything. Sure. Yeah. And so I'm in this flip, and my contractor kind of starts doing what contractors do, unfortunately. And he started kind of flaking out on me. He'd been good for like, half a dozen to 8 maybe flips tops. And then all of a sudden he's not showing up on time. He's charging me for things that he's not doing. He's trying to like upcharge me on stuff and like buying more expensive materials than I asked for, or saying he bought things, or showing me receipts from other jobs that wasn't even mine to try to get me to pay, like just flaking out. Right. And I'm like, oh, this is no good. Right. I can't continue to use this guy. I let him stay throughout the flip because I just didn't want to I was too early on to know I probably should have, but I sort of clamped down on him and we kind of stumbled over the finish line, got it done. It was fine. And I went to my realtor. I'm like, all right, cool. What can we sell this for now? And he's like, ran the numbers. He's like, oh, this is what we can sell it for. And he goes, he lived in the neighborhood, by the way. This was in a neighborhood he lived. And he told me what it was to be worth. I'm like, that's solid, right? He lives here and he's a realtor. He's been a realtor for, 15 years. So we put it on the market, nothing. Couple of weeks, he's like, we should probably reduce. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I get it. Whatever. We reduce couple, 2-3 more weeks, nothing, just crickets. And I'm like, Rob, what's happening? How can we not be getting any offers at all? You live in this neighborhood, man. You know what it's worth. What's happening, right? And he's like, well, let's reduce it again. And we reduce it again, still nothing. And now we're almost at break even. Like it's not even like profitable anymore. And I'm like, Rob, seriously, like what happened? And he goes, listen, you win some, you lose some. And I was like, what? That doesn't compute in my brain. You don't chalk it up to you do lose some, but not because you just said, you win some, you lose. Like that attitude just doesn't fly, man. I can't live with that. So at the end of this, we finally sold it. I lost a few $1,000s and I just like never used him for anything again. I never talked to him. But at that point, I had lost my contractor and my realtor. And I did have a couple of deals in the works that I was working on. And I was just like, I got one under contract and I remember thinking, what am I going to do? I don't have a contractor. I don't know how to comp properties. I don't have access to them. I didn't even know that side of it, right? All I was doing was managing a contractor and managing a realtor. I didn't know what either one of them did. I can't swing a hammer and I can't comp deals, right? It's like the most vulnerable, stupid position to put yourself in. But I had a deal under contract because I at least knew how to do that. But I had no way to monetize it. But I had a lot of flipper friends. And I called one of them that I knew was solid. And I'm like, Ray, his name was Ray. I said, Ray, I've got this deal. Would you buy it for $110,000? Like if I said this is where I'm going to sell it to you for $110,000, would you buy it for that price? Now I had it under contract for $95,000. He goes, Give me a few minutes. Let me go look at some numbers. So he goes, run some numbers, comes back and he goes, yeah, I'd buy it for $110,000. I said, okay, well, I'm going to wholesale it to you. So I'm going to assign it to you and kind of explain. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I made $15,000. Now in Michigan, back at this time, 15 to 20 grand was what you made on a flip sometimes. Like that wasn't a bad flip, really. Anywhere between 15 and 25,000 was pretty normal. I just made 15 grand. I didn't do anything. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, and we closed 2 weeks later. I was like, well, that was pretty good. So I had another one in the pipeline, got it under contract, ironically for the exact same amount, 95,000, similar house. And I called Ray and I said, Ray, I got another one. I'll sell it to you at the same price. And he goes, give me 10 minutes. He called me back in 10 minutes. He goes, I'll take it. I was like, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. What just happened? I just made 30 grand in a month. And I didn't talk to a contractor. I didn't have to talk to a buyer. I didn't have to deal with appraisers. I didn't have to do any of that. Like I didn't have to get into like, the electric panel is bad. You find out once you're into the project, like none of that crap. Bad leaky pipes, like none of that. And I was like, wait a minute. What if I just did this? Because I like this. I don't have a lot of patience. And so finding a deal and getting it monetized within a month, a couple weeks to a month, like, whoa, I like that a lot. And so there was one guy locally that I knew was a wholesaler because I didn't really even understand wholesaling. Like I had just done a couple, but I didn't understand what a wholesaling company looked like. I just knew that I sort of stumbled onto something, but what does it look like A to Z? So I took this guy out to lunch. He wasn't a friend, but he was an acquaintance. I knew him from like RIAs and stuff. And so I asked him out to lunch and picked his brain. And he kind of told me, he filled in the gaps. He told me what I didn't know about like marketing and then like assignment contracts and all that. Like, because the title company handled the assignment contract for me when I assigned those. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing. So he kind of like filled in the gaps for me. And I was like, okay, now in hindsight, this guy was like, he's a nice guy. I'm not mentioning his name for a reason. He's a very nice guy. But if I had to like give a wholesaler, now that I know what I know, a wholesaler a grade from like A to E, this guy was like a D wholesaler. He wasn't good. Yeah. He was like one of those guys where he probably only did a deal every 3 or 4 months, and then he'd go buy a motorcycle with what he paid, and then he'd party, go on a vacation with the next guy. Like he just wasn't running a real business. But he did know, he kind of knew the steps I didn't know. So I went out and started advertising, and I remember distinctly, I sent out 800 postcards the first month, and I got a deal, and I made about 13, 14,000 on that. The second month, I did another 800 postcards, 800, right? 800 postcards. I got another deal, made about 15,000. But then I was like, oh, this is good. This is not hard at all. So I started taking all the money, because I still had that money saved up. I started taking all the money from these wholesales that I was doing and just putting them into marketing. So I went from doing like 800 cards to doing like 2,500 to 5,000 to 10,000 to 20,000. Like I ramped up like that. Like every time I got a deal and monetized it, I put all that money back into marketing. So I just supercharged my marketing. And I don't have it in front of me, but I have this like spreadsheet where you can see like this exponential growth in marketing, and my revenue was following it. So I was getting more and more revenue. And what was holding me back was I hate answering the phones. I'm not an extroverted person. So when I would put out marketing, the call would come in and I'd be like, I'd let it go to voicemail, and then I would call them back. But if they didn't answer, I was like glad they didn't answer, kind of thing. No way to scale a business. So I hired a sales guy, and what I realized was he loves answering the phone. And so he's crushing it. You know what I mean? Like I would go out, if I got 5 appointments from my marketing when I was doing the sales, if I got 5 appointments, I could consistently on average close 1. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like about 20%. Okay. Not great, but not the worst. And I thought that was okay. When I hired a sales guy who was a sales guy, you know what I mean? Like that was his DNA. He was closing 3 for every 5 that he went on, which is insane. The difference in revenue and the scope of your company month over month. And that's how we grew. I just kept throwing more and more money into marketing. He kept crushing more and more. Like he was answering calls and going on the appointment in the beginning. And we were just a powerhouse. Like we exploded. We joined 7-figure flipping. We were in a contest to see which of the initial group, the initial founding members or whatever, could get to $1 million first. Well, we joined early on in this like crushing it phase. We weren't like totally crushing it yet, but we were doing about a deal a month. And we joined this group and we just supercharged it. We just kept throwing it. We just kept doing what we were doing, right? But we were getting the knowledge from some of the people in the groups, things that we didn't know of how to like, as you're scaling, how to like handle that. And so we got to $1 million and we had a year to do it. I think we hit $1 million in 10 months. Like we already got to $1 million. We won the contest because we were just scaling like crazy. And that's how we did it. Like I was good at marketing. I was good at dispo. Like when it comes to wholesaling, you have acquisitions and dispositions. I'm really good at dispo because I'm more of a negotiator in a hostile environment than I am a salesperson in a calm environment. Like I'm not good. Well, it sounds terrible to say, but I'm going to say it. I'm not good at empathy. I'm a little bit too fact-based and action. Like, okay, you got a problem. Let's just fix it. Right. Like let's not dwell on it. But in the acquisitions role, you're a little bit of a bartender. Like you're listening to problems and you're just being someone that will listen and empathize. I'm not great at that. What I am good at is, hey, investor person, I have a house. You're a flipper. This is what we want for it. Let's go. And they're like, well, I'm not going to pay that. And I'm like, well, listen, I got other people that want it if you don't. So that's fine. See ya. Like that's how I like to operate. And you can't do that in the acquisition side. So I was good at dispo. He was great at acquisitions. We were a 2-man band for a little while and just started crushing it. And we just started replacing ourselves by hiring sales and dispositions and people to deal with title companies and people to answer the phone because my sales guy who ended up being my partner, he was answering calls and going on the appointment, which is great. The synergy there is amazing, but it's not sustainable when you grow. So he had to give up the phones at some point and just go on the appointments. But yeah, man, we were a duo, man. We were crushing it. We were doing great, and we did great for a decade.
I love it. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. And the other thing to mention is you guys built this company out. Like you just said, you guys have been doing this for over a decade. I mean, you built something.
We started I had a company when I took him on as a partner, we changed the name, we rebranded it and sort of like clean slate, but we just rebranded my company. Right. So I started my company in 2008. In 2015, we drew a line in the sand, we rebranded, got a new LLC and kind of started fresh. So yeah, we started in August of 2015. We got our LLC.
Wow. That's amazing. But like you'd said, you'd been doing this for far longer. Okay.
Yeah. I'd been doing it for like 6-7 years prior to that. Poorly. And then kind of like when I hired him as a sales guy, that's when I started ramping up. And so that was like mid to late 13, going into 14, I started figuring things out a little bit and ramping up and joined 7-figure flipping. So yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, I'm sure like most companies, you had good years and bad years, but generally speaking, did you guys just sort of like stabilize at that $1 million mark and kind of stay there year after year? Did you continue to grow, or what did growth look like?
Yeah, good question. It's sort of like a source of pride and frustration because we got to $1 million, and I've talked about this on countless podcasts and on stage. We got there messy. We didn't get there with a nice, clean system. We got there really messy. It was really ugly how we did it. And so we had to retool when we got to $1 million. We kind of let almost everyone go, not at one time, but we sort of realized once we like lifted our head up from working on this project of getting to $1 million, we lifted our head up and realized we're just a mess. Like we don't have a clean business, and the people working for us now are not really doing that good of a job. Like we were pushing things through, me and my partner. Like he's a sales guy by nature. I'm a dispo guy by nature. And so we were hiring salespeople during that time, and my partner was filling the pipeline, but we were closing tons of deals, and we just kind of thought, we weren't even tracking who was getting the deals. Right. And so at the end of the day, it's like, well, money's coming out of the other end of the pipe, and it's good money. So I guess we're good. But then once we lifted our heads up after that year and started attributing sales to salespeople and like all this stuff and started looking at it like a business, we realized, oh shit, our sales guy, he hasn't gotten a deal in 3 months. It's been 90 days and no deals. And it's like, if you have sales guys on your team, especially in this industry, when you start questioning a sales guy about lack of contracts, they'll tell you all about the leads that they have that are hot,
the bad leads,
and all the leads that they're following up on, and all the leads that are about to sign. They'll tell you all about that. But the fact of the matter is, he hadn't closed anything, and so we put him on like a PIP, the performance improvement plan, and basically said, you got limited time here. You got to start showing us something. And he didn't. So we had to let him go. And so our company was a series of, we really struggled with salespeople. And that could be a whole separate podcast about the psychology of an owner who is also a salesperson and how that affects your sales team. It's pretty interesting. But the fact of the matter is we kind of struggled with that. So to answer your original question, we got to $1 million fast. We kind of crumbled and had to retool in the air. And we kind of stayed at $1 million for a few years. Then we made a lot of the classic mistakes. Like we started doing marketing that we hit a critical mass, and then we kept putting money into it. In other words, we were seeing diminished returns on our marketing because we kept just doing more. And so once we started seeing diminishing returns, we doubled and tripled down on the amount of marketing we were. So the returns, the declining returns were like kept declining, and we tried to fix it with more money. Right? Mistake. And so we were doing that leading up to like into 2019. We were kind of in that mode. We were still doing about $1 million a year, but we were spending more and more of our profits trying to chase this diminishing return. And then COVID hit, and we were like, oh crap. Because in Michigan, I don't know about everywhere else, but in Michigan, there was a lot of sensitivity to the virus. Yeah. More so than other places, right? Yeah. And so in Michigan, people stopped checking their mail box. They stopped picking up their UPS packages. Like they didn't want to touch anything because they thought they would get COVID by touching it. And so imagine if at the time, our marketing strategy was like 80% direct mail. And so overnight, almost like in February of 2020, people stop they stop touching their mail. And so if they're not touching their mail, they're certainly not looking at your postcard, right? Especially they're not touching your postcard, because that is clearly junk mail for most people. And so all of our marketing, all of our calls, all of our inbound leads went from, this to zero. Like zero overnight. We're like, oh my gosh. So we had to let a few people go. We're like, we got to figure this out. We don't have enough, coming in. And then at the same time, I said 80% was direct mail, 20% was PPC, right? Pay-per-click. So it kind of took care of itself, because we shut down our direct mail, because after like a month of zero and realizing why it was zero, it wasn't like, oh, we're not getting any calls from direct mail. I wonder what happened. Did our mail go out? No, we knew why, because the news was saying, don't touch your mail. You know what I mean? Like they were freaking everyone out. But at the same time, everyone's sitting at home. People are starting to worry about losing their job, losing their house. And so what are they doing? They're in Google saying, how do I sell my house fast?
Yeah.
Right. And what does that do? That just boosts your PPC, intake. And so PPC took off, and it was like, now that was 80% of what we were doing, and it was getting us our leads.
Nice.
So we kind of recovered, but it took, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't like a light switch. So about a month of no direct mail working. And then, a couple months later, PPC started working. So we had a little scare during that time, but we got lean. We got let go a lot of people. We stopped paying for direct mail, which saved us money, which was great. And so 2020 for us, in all of the 10 years since we started, 2020 was our highest profit margin year to date.
Oh, nice.
COVID was awesome for our business, right? Bad for a lot of people, awesome for our business, because, and by the way, it wasn't our highest revenue. It was our lowest revenue to date, highest profit margin. So we were like, wait, we can make more money, and we had more money at the end of the year than we did most years, even though our revenue was down because our profit was so high. Wait, we can make this kind of revenue and have this kind of profitability without all the hassles. Like we were chicken with heads off running around. We were both working 40, 50 hours, like running around doing stuff. During that year of COVID, the first year, I wasn't working more than, 10 hours a week, maybe. Partner was working probably 10 to 20 because he was doing a lot of the sales, but we were like, this is a lifestyle business all of a sudden, and we're keeping more money. This is great. And so for the next 3 years, we purposely didn't do anything to grow. And we stayed at about $1 million a year, give or take. And we didn't do anything on purpose. We'd have meetings once a month. Like, hey, do we want to do anything here? Do we want to ramp up any of our marketing? Do we want to go back to direct mail? And we were both like, this is kind of nice. Like he has a couple of kids, my kids were kind of older by then, but I was like, this is nice actually having a little bit of my life back. And so for 3 years, we just sat on that and just did $1 million, kept it steady. And then around 2023, early 2024, we were like, okay, we've been kind of sitting back, letting this all kind of grow and be nice and easy. Let's pour a little gasoline back on. Like, let's get back into it, right? So we started doing that. And then in 2024, our revenue was like 1.5 million. So we grew by like $500,000 we hired a COO. We did some things, but we grew pretty well. And then we had a kind of I can tell the story of this too, but we made a decision to break the company up, or just to part ways as best partners, I should say, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just taking like a half a step back here. So it's really cool. You painted the picture over the last decade of the ebbs and flows, the rises and the falls. During that time, what is one thing you look back on? It can be, technical or maybe it was, more set like a mindset thing, but one thing that you really unlocked that helped you when you guys did decide in 23, 24 to start growing again that you can recall?
It's probably not going to be what you're looking for. The reason that we started growing in 2024 or late 2023, why we made that decision, honestly, both of us are like super, super action oriented. We're both extreme type A's. We both love to build and we both need to be challenged. And we had spent the 3 years prior kind of sitting around a little bit, right?
Just taking
and I
a
think
breather.
for us, it was more of an itch and an anxiousness. We were starting to get anxious. We were starting to be anxious that we wanted more, and this wasn't enough. But I think it was like, if you think of it like this, we were chasing something, and we caught it, and we ate, and we got a little fat and bored, and we just sort of like, we're fine to sit there. But then the food that we had eaten 3 years earlier was gone kind of in our mind, or, whatever, psychologically. And we were hungry again, and we just wanted to chase something again. We wanted to have that excitement of growing and chasing and building, because we had just sat around too long, and it was just time to get back in the game a little bit. And it was a little bit of laziness. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little laziness that made us do it, but it was laziness that came from absolute insanity. The 5 years or 4 years prior to that, it was insane. And so we just, and to be like, not to be overly sharing here, he has a couple of kids. One of them has special needs. And it was just, there was a lot going on where he wanted to be present for, and it came at a good time. And I just, I had a grandkid that was born during that time, and I wanted to spend time with them and my daughter a little bit. So it just came at a good time for us to take a break. And, but once that kind of stabilized and we had just done that for a few years, we were like, all right, we're like growers and builders. We're not people who sit back and just kind of like do nothing. So we started going for it a little bit, but that caused some challenges too, right? Like, there's a lot here, and we don't have nearly enough time in one podcast, but
sure.
when you sit around and you have a kind of a type A mindset, and then you start going again, all the lines that were in our business, and when I mean lines, I mean like lines of responsibility, right? Started to look blurry when we started going again, because we didn't really have a lot of lines during those 3 years of kind of sitting back, because we were letting other people do stuff, and like, we kind of commingled responsibilities, and sometimes he would dabble a little bit back here where I usually work, but it wasn't a big deal because we weren't causing problems. We were just sort of interested, like, you're not around. I'll talk to Connor. I'll help him figure out this problem on the dispo side. Oh, whatever. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. It was like, okay, it was all friendly and well intended. But then once we said, okay, we're going to focus, we're going to go, and you're in this race car and you hit the gas, everyone can't be trying to steer and hit the brakes and the gas. It just doesn't work, right? And so I think those lines got, and by the way, I'll say this too, in all fairness to everyone involved here who I'm not mentioning, but if they listen, I gave up some responsibilities that I had historically had in the company because there wasn't enough for two people to do. And so I sort of relented and gave up some things to my partner that I had normally done. And he just started doing them because there wasn't enough for two people. Right. So he's like, I'll do them. I don't mind doing those things. Like, I'll do it. So by the time we decided to go again, he really probably had 75% control of the maybe 80% control of the operations. But when we decided to go again, my mindset was, okay, I'll take back over my half. You do your half. I won't bother you about your half. You don't bother me about my half, and we'll just go. Well, he had 3 years of kind of being involved in the other side. And in his mind, he was like, well, we'll go, but we're just going to go with what we're doing. And I'm going to continue kind of running the operations. And we had, at that point, because it had been 3 years, I don't know. It's sort of like a band is together and they're having hits. They break up for 3 years. When they come back together, some people have different idea of where the band should go. And maybe they've decided their musical taste has changed a little bit. And they don't want to go back to the way you used to do it. They have new music that they want to kind of, not that we were a band, but you know what I mean? Like it was sort of that. It wasn't nobody tried to do anything weird or bad, but we started fighting more about things that don't matter really, because at that point we had a business that was kind of running itself a lot. And so for both of us to make our mark, we had to do something. And if there wasn't anything really to do, we started doing things that didn't really matter and then arguing about those things. It was just stupid, but we were still getting along fine. Like I can go as deep or as not into this depending on time. But the bottom line is, the breaking point was one day we started arguing, or we started talking about our disposition email that we send out to our buyers list. Okay. This is an email we had been using it in its format for, 9 years, and it's been fine. And I won't get into why we were arguing, why we even were talking about it, because it's really ridiculous, but we were talking about it. And he was suggesting changes because our current one was no good. And my position was, well, what do you mean it's no good? What is your evidence? Why do we want to change? By the way, there's a million things we can do in this company. Why would we change something that's not broken? Why would we not focus on something where there's some real, impact? And he's like, we got to change it. And he's telling me, and I'm like, no. So we start arguing about this. And by the way, the dispo side should be my domain, right? So we start arguing about it. And I was just like, and he was getting really mad. And I guess I was too. But afterward, I was like, man, that felt different. That argument felt really just fueled by something else than the email itself. And he's like, hey, he texted me a few hours later. He's like, hey, can I come over like now to your house? And I was like, no, you can't because I'm in the middle of something, but I could meet you for lunch tomorrow. And he goes, okay, as soon as possible, let's meet for lunch. And I was like, I told my wife, I go, oh, he's definitely going to say it's either you or me. One of us has to go because this is terrible. Yeah. So I met with him for lunch. We went through the whole lunch. We had nice, pleasant conversation. How's your family? How's your family? What did you do this summer? What did you do this summer? Surface pleasantries. The bill comes. He pulls out his wallet. He's like, all right. I said, man, Mike, I got to tell you, I didn't think that's what you called me to lunch for. You wanted to meet me immediately yesterday and you want to meet me as soon as possible. And I really thought you were going to say, hey, it's either you or me. Somebody's got to go. And he's like, really? I said, yeah. After that meeting yesterday, I thought that's what you're going to say. And he goes, no. Like, I mean, but that's kind of a wild thing to say. Like, what do you think one of us needs to go? I was like, I don't know. I mean, no, not necessarily, but everything is open for discussion. Like everything can be put on the table. Right. Yeah. And he goes, all right, well, let's just think about that. And then, we left and he texted me or no, he called me. He didn't text me. He called me like an hour later and he goes, dude, I got to confess something. I did want to talk about what you thought I wanted to talk about. I just sort of like didn't have the guts once I was there. Like I felt really weird about it. And he goes, so I kind of like bailed on that. And then you brought it up. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But at least I know my instincts aren't terrible. Yeah. So anyways, we started talking about it and we had a meeting. We're like, all right, what does this look like? And I said, well, first of all, if something like this is even going to be talked about, who do we think should stay? Who do we think should go? I said, because personally, I'm good with staying, taking over, buying you out and going forward. I'm good with that. I have passion for that. But if it goes the other way, I'm fine with that too. I'm okay with that. I'm not afraid to be out there starting something new, whatever. And so we talked about it, and for various reasons, it was determined. We agreed it was better for him to stay. And so we just, he said, listen, I don't want to make this weird. I don't want to make this an argument about valuations. He said, you give me a valuation that you think is fair and I'll just sign off. we're not going to debate it. I don't want it to end in an ugly way. So I will sign off on whatever you think, as long as you think it's fair. And so I came up with a valuation that honestly, because he said that, I didn't give him the valuation I would have given him. I gave him a little bit lower valuation because I thought if he's just going to blindly sign off, I'm probably going to not value it as high as I would have or as I want to.
Sure.
And so I gave him a valuation. It was 7 figures. I'm not going to say how much. It's not important, but
sure.
And he said, okay. And we did it. We drew up the paperwork. And by the way, up to that point, him and I, after 9 years, we didn't have a contract. We didn't have an operating agreement or a partnership agreement. We were running a 7-figure business for almost 10 years without any paperwork, by the way. Now, I say that not because I advise it. No. I say it because, wow, what a great world we could live in if we could do that. Right?
100%.
Like, he never tried to screw me. I never tried to screw him. We probably would have gone another 10 years without any paperwork. And we talked about it from time to time, like, we really probably should have an agreement of some kind, right? And I was like, yeah, we should. But we never did. Like, we did it on a handshake for 10 years. Now, I'm sure if you get comments, people are going to go, this guy's a moron. I turned it off when he said that. I liked him, but then I realized he's an idiot. I get it. It's not ideal. But honestly, there's a part of me that's a little proud of that. I'm proud that I went into business with somebody that I could trust like that and who trust me like that. So anyway, so we drew up a contract to sell. That's the rest is history. We still go out to lunch once a month.
I love it.
And just hang out and talk. It was all amicable. I've never heard of a real estate company being sold to anybody, even a partner, where it wasn't ugly. I've never heard of them being sold successfully, but all of them implode or go out of business most times that I hear when a business ends, right? Or somebody just walks away and just, there's no sale. They're like, we're new. We just started. I don't really like working with you. I'm just going to go do my own thing. Right. You hear that. Yeah. So I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud that we actually had a company that, because I was running half the company for a lot of the time, right? He took over at some point, but we had to have systems in place, people in place that worked, a very stable business for him to feel comfortable letting me just step out clean, which I did. I stepped out and he hasn't needed me to come back. Right. So again, proud of that. I'm proud that we had a company that was so stable and well run that somebody could step out and it could still keep running and growing. So that's why and how.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think totally something to be proud of. We were talking about this pre-show, just kind of looking around. Most real estate companies, residential real estate companies that get into, flipping, wholesaling, whatever, for the most part, they end up winding down at some point, or they do some big complete pivot and rebrand and they become something else, or they just die. Not many do people exit, and you're one of the few stories of a clean, successful exit. I think that's pretty cool. It's something I would be proud of for sure as well. So,
where everybody's still friendly and cool.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's the big thing, where everybody's friendly and cool, like a business deal that didn't go sour for sure, or have to be forced. So very cool. So then from there, Mike, that led to your new venture, starting a fund. You own a hard money lending company. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it started a little before before I sold to my partner. We were kind of doing it at a small scale. One thing I noticed, what was very apparent to me when I started flipping houses back in 2008, was there was nonstop conversations about money, raising money. Where do I find money? Where do I get money? Money. It was just always a topic on top of everyone's thoughts. Fast forward to 2025. Guess what everyone talks about all the time in real estate? Money. Where do I get money? Private money, hard money, conventional money. Money, right? So it's the one thing that's never gone away. And there's not much goes away in real estate, even though gurus like to tell you, oh, that doesn't work. It worked 2 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. Here's the new thing, right? It all kind of works. But there are ups and downs and things that do come around that don't last, right? But the one thing that is constant is money, right? And so I had a partner that we bought, not apartment buildings, we bought residential real estate together. About 5-6 years ago, we started buying rentals, and he's just a friend from high school. He's got a lot of money. He's a partner in a law firm. So he just got capital and he wanted to get into real estate. And he's like, hey, let's do rentals. So we started doing rentals and we built our portfolio up to about 25 rentals. And we ended up liquidating those during COVID at the height of the market. And when we were in the middle of liquidating, he's like, hey, do people borrow money like that, in real estate? Like, is that, because he doesn't know anything about real estate really. He goes, is that a thing, like lending money to people? And I said, yeah, it's a thing. And he goes, well, what if we started a lending company? I was like, that's a fantastic idea. Let's do it. I know a lot of people who need money. So we started this company, started growing it, and did a lot of things wrong. But what I realized about lending was, not only is it always needed, but what I realized about it was very systemizable. It was very conducive to putting in processes that don't change, and they're very static and they kind of work the same all the time. And you can plug very few individuals into that process to make sure the process is working. Unlike real estate, where, especially house flipping, you can make a process for sure, and you should. But every house is its own surprise sometimes, right? You start opening up walls and it's like, oh, this is, bad wiring, or the plumbing was done by the homeowner is terrible, right? Or this isn't to code or whatever. Like there's mold that we didn't see it because we moved their drywall and they drywalled over mold because they didn't want us to see it, right? All that stuff is absent for the most part in a lending company. It's a much more traditional company, where you just set up processes and a few people can run it. And I really appreciated that because I like setting up processes and I like managing them. So I can bring someone in to manage this very static process, but behind the scenes, I understand the real estate of it. And so unlike a lot of hedge funds or hard money lenders who are like, I think more finance people or tech people or whatever, they're kind of in that world. I'm a real estate person who's lending money. And so when Devin comes to me and says, hey, I've got this property. I went to a hard money lender and they rejected it. Like, I'll give you for example, with somebody in a 7-figure group. He came to me, he goes, hey, I don't know if you would do this or not, but I want you to take a look at this property. I just got under contract. It's a log cabin. And I went to I'm not going to name their name, but another hard money lender, and they denied it. And I said, why did they deny it? And he said, because it's a log cabin. I said, no other reason, just because it's made like it's a log cabin. He said, no other reason. I have comps. I have sold comparables of log cabins in the area. They just said they don't lend to log cabins. They just won't. And I said, that makes no sense. Let me see the numbers. He sent me the numbers. It was a smoking good deal, very safe. It was just a log cabin. So I lent him the money. He bought it. He renovated it. He sold it. He made a ton of money. He paid me back. I'm like, nice. It's because I'm a real estate investor. I can look at this stuff logically and say, does this make sense or not? And I've had people come to me with special circumstances or weird ones and go, listen, I know this looks weird, but let me show you what's happening here in my neighborhood or in my area. Like, you see how this is normal? Like, this is normal. Well, other lenders just don't like it. I'm like, well, I'm not at the lender. Let me see it. Right. So I look at it like a real estate investor evaluating a deal. And if I would buy it, if it looks like something I would want, I'll lend on it for sure all day long. Yeah. And so we started growing this company and we've just sort of hit kind of a threshold now where, it's a whole different ballgame. When I raised money in the past, it was for a flip or a deal, right? And I needed like $100,000, $200,000. But and that's fine for like high net worth individuals is what we call them, right? That's who we're talking to a lot of times. But when you're talking to institutional investors, like family offices, for example, they don't lend they won't even take a step out of bed for $100,000 loan, right? Or investment. So they're investing $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million. It is a completely different sales cycle for somebody like that. It's a completely different world. I'm used to calling up Devin, man, hey, I need to borrow money for this deal. It's 150. Here's the address. I'll look at it real quick. Mike, yeah, I got that. All right, cool. I'll write up a quick note. I'll send it to you and we're good to go. Right. The sales cycle is so much longer in an institutional deal. Like it takes, you track it in weeks and months, and that's very hard for me. So I was approaching it in a very transactional, like quick way in the beginning, and I was not having luck. I was not having success. I have since realized what I was doing wrong, and now we're in talks with a couple of different family offices, and we're kind of on the verge of really expanding significantly. So that's the plus side. I love it though. It's a different business than real estate, but I love it because I know it's here. It's not going anywhere. Like the market can dry up in Michigan, maybe, or the economy go to heck in Michigan, and maybe flipping and wholesaling becomes more, or they could change a law, make it harder to do or whatever they want to do. What I'm doing has been around forever, right? People have been loaning money forever or loaning assets or whatever. So I like the stability of it. I do like the hands-offness of it, and I like the very limited to no surprises. There's really very few surprises in lending. If you do it right? If you underwrite well, there's very few surprises. A lot like flipping. If you underwrite well in flipping, there's not as many surprises, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And I can see that, like that connection piece that you have to real estate and the knowledge base, how that can benefit you guys at least at this level. Similar in my market, we have like one area is like arguably one of the hottest areas to live. But a lot of it is like older farmland. A lot of the Clarksville expansion hasn't happened out there yet. So you get like some AG stuff, and there's hard money lenders that have a hard, fast rule. They're like, nope, not going to lend on it just because of how it's zoned. Where somebody like you, I could pull some solid comps and be like, Mike, like, dude, we're going to make a buttload of money on this.
All you have to do is show me what you see. That's usually what I tell investors. If there's anything weird about it, show me what you see. Tell me what you see. Like, just give me the plan here. Tell me the plan. And then we can talk about it for sure. So yeah, I mean, I'm not in the business of funding a lot of crazy, weird stuff. Like, that's not the point. But aside, and I learned this too, like I'm kind of like peeling the curtain back on lenders a little bit, but I know this about me, and I didn't realize it was the same for most investors, but it is. Most investors are not as interested in the interest rate as you think they are. Yeah. Because the interest rate only becomes a thing for them when the process is painful, slow, or there's like gotcha fees that they weren't aware of. Like, they don't care until you make them aggravated, and then the fee is what they want to like. I don't like this intro. I want to find a lower interest rate. What I have found is, if you make, and this is what we have excelled at in my company, Express Hard Money. This is what we've excelled at. I make the experience for the borrower so smooth and pain-free that essentially they don't care about the interest. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but when you're borrowing $150,000 for 5 months, the difference in interest rate is hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's certainly not tens of thousands. And so if I say, Devin, every deal that you want to get a loan on, I will approve that loan in 24 hours. I'll fund it within a day or two if I have to. And I'm not going to make you jump through any hoops. There will be no last minute at the closing table gotchas. Like, I will handle most of the legwork. I'll do everything in my power to do everything for you. I'll need you just for a couple of signatures, but it'll be pain-free. It'll be seamless. And there's going to be no like long list of charges, all these crazy charges people charge. Like, I'll just make this so smooth. But you do the math and you're like, oh, I could go through this lender, total hassle. They denied some of mine. They changed their rates on me last minute during COVID. They did all these things, but I'll save $350 if I go with the hassle. If I go with this other guy, if I go with Express, it's going to cost me another couple $100, but my gosh, I never even hear from them. It's just, they send the money and it's just seamless. It's no big deal. It's like dealing with a friend. Like, what do you do? You're going to spend the $350 every single time. And I'm not just saying that like theoretically. I'm telling you that's what happens. I've seen it. Yeah. And I've seen people come to me. I've had people that we both know come to me and say, yeah, your rates are a little higher than everybody else. And I go, I know. I'm not trying to be the cheapest. It's not a race to the bottom for me. However, I promise you this, if you do one loan with me, all your loans will be with me going forward. You won't even think about it, because you'll realize the difference in the experience. And it has held true. And I've had people do that. And then they're bombarding me with loan requests beyond what I have the capital for. So, and it's not that I'm gouging. It's just, I just know, for me to be profitable, the reason why people can charge less is they have these, what they call warehouse lines of credit and all these like big institutions behind them. But once you do that, once you get in bed with those institutions for this big warehouse line of credit, now you have to conform to all of their rules and everything that they do. And so now you're just dealing with a bank, essentially. You're just dealing with a bank. It's the same exact thing. There's no advantage to it anymore, other than you're paying more interest. But the hassles are in line with a bank.
All there. Yeah.
I don't have a warehouse line. I raise all my money. It's all private, not private, but it's all in-house money. I can create whatever loan programs I want. I can make exceptions to anything I need to in order to get the job done if it makes sense for the company. So I don't have to follow anybody else's rules. So it makes dealing with me so much better. So much better. I could have grown so much faster with a warehouse line, but I just wouldn't do it, because there's certain things that we do in seven figure, right? It's 100% financing. Good luck. Yeah. Good luck getting a warehouse line and they're not going to let you do that. I know.
No, that won't fly. Yeah.
They're not going to let you, right? But I can give 100% financing on purchase and renovation. I have that. Nobody can tell me I can't. I control the money. So anyways, I love it. I love the business. I think we're the best at what we do. Our biggest flaw right now is, we don't have enough capital to meet the demand. And that's what I'm working on. That's what I focus all my time on now.
I love that. And you had brought up a pivot from, years before and what you known up until this point of raising capital and the different types of lenders, and how now you're approaching these family offices different, and it's a different conversation. You're learning new things. what are a couple big things that you've realized through this process that have allowed for your success, or what you think is going to be your success? You had mentioned being in talks with some of these family offices and stuff like that.
There's a couple of big things. One thing we realized was institutional investors have a hard time taking seriously companies that do their own finances, that manage their own finances, which is foreign to me because I have always managed my own finances, even in the lending company. We do all the wires in and out. Like, we look at, how much money should we have in this account? How much money we paid our investors? Like, we keep track of all that. Well, institutional investors, that's a huge no-go. Like, they cannot take you seriously if you do that. Because the possibility of fraudulent activities is significantly higher for people who self-manage their money, right? Like, if they're going to give you $20 million and you're going to tell me you don't have a arm's length third party who's going to be looking over your shoulder at the very least, or at the very more likely is they're going to be like running your finances for you. Like, I'm not giving you that money, Mr. Person who's never run a fund, there's no way. So that's one thing that was new to us. And they're called administrators, and all funds have, or at some point get, what's called an administrator, and they can do a number of things for you, but they basically are your bookkeeper, and they're your finance, they're like a CFO kind of. They kind of are your default CFO. Doesn't mean you can't have a CFO, but they sort of do a lot of the functions of a CFO. So we had to bring that on board. We're still working through the kinks of the first admin that we brought on. It's not been easy. I won't lie to you. And if you're not a CPA, trying to audit an administrator's financial reporting that they give you is tough, right? And I'm not a CPA. I mean, I can do basic math, but I'm certainly not a CPA. And so trying to bring on board those folks and get them kind of up to snuff and get them in the right, direction, it's challenging. So that was one thing. Another big thing was, I'll tell you, it's just a quick anecdote, but so we were talking to a family office, and we got past their initial round of basically their due diligence. And when I say due diligence, they weren't even looking at our financials. They were just like due diligence on us as operators, right? Like, I want to meet you. I want to talk to you. Give me a present. We presented to them, pitch deck, right? And we got through that, and they said, okay, great. In order to go to the next step of due diligence, we just need to get access to your data room. And I said, okay, cool. And by the way, we had with us on the call, we hired an advisor, somebody who deals with a lot of institutional investors. We hired this person as like a consultant, and he was on the call too on our team. And they said this family office said, okay, we just need to get access to your data room, and we'll start that process. And I said, okay. We got off the call, and I talked to the rep, and I said, what's a data room?
We don't have a data room.
Like, they want access to it, and I don't even know what they're asking. Like, I don't even know that
Google
term.
Drive.
And he's like, I mean, kinda, but he's like, well, so he started sending us some information and kind of giving us, tells what it is essentially a Google Drive. It's not usually Google Drive. It's something else. It can be Dropbox sometimes, but essentially it is a folder structure that has all of your financials and all your HR stuff and all your like projections and all this, your hierarchy, your org chart, like, there's a lot of stuff in there, everything. Yeah. But we had some of it, but not in a folder structure. Like, we just have what we needed, but we didn't have an org chart. We've got 3 people. Like, we didn't have an org chart. So like we didn't have like, because, and unfortunately, because we hired a new administrator 6 months ago, our financials are still like, we're still working through getting them up to speed on how we do things, and not how we do things, more like how our fund operates, because they're giving us financials, but they're misinterpreting some things that are going on as like, oh, this is an expense. Like, nah, sort of, but so like our financials aren't clean in that they're 100% buttoned up, because we're in the middle of trying to teach this administrative company how our fund works, right? And so now we have this data room, so we're like scrambling, trying to get everything together, but it's working out. But like, just things like that are foreign to me. I've just never had to nobody's ever said the word data room to me. So I'd never heard of it before. Nobody has ever said something about a fund administrator, even though I've been running a fund for a few years now. Like we've been self-administering. It's no big deal, but it's no big deal for high net worth investors. I've got investors who have given, invested 100,000, 150,000. They don't ask. They don't know either, frankly.
Yeah.
But a family office, it's just every day for them. That's just how they operate. So stuff like that we've learned. It's been interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Man, is there with that whatever you call it, what do you call it? Data
room?
Data room. Yeah. With that data, is there like a specific like file tree hierarchy and everything they want? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there is a specific structure and hierarchy that they want.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Luckily, this family office supplied us with that. They said, hey, this is how we want it to be structured.
Here's the template. Yeah. Oh, thank God.
Yeah. So we just use their template. You know what I mean? Like, my gosh, it was crazy. It's still crazy, but we're getting it. We're getting it.
It does make sense to me though. It kind of clicks. Cause like you said, we're not talking high net worth. Like we're talking ultra high net worth. Like this is, a family office. This is a company that runs a family's money and like, they don't play around.
These guys they have their own family office, which is made up of a bunch of families, but they also represent like a dozen other family offices around the world who they will also introduce us to and like try to, see if we can get commitments from them. So it's huge, but because it's like, if I reached out to you, Devin, and I'm like, hey man, we're looking for investors in the fund. And you're like, I got $100,000. And then you were like, you know what, dude, like I gotta put that money somewhere else. It wouldn't be the end of the world, right? It would be a bummer, but it's not a big deal. This is a big deal. So screwing up the data room, screwing up something that they're looking for, or because the thing too is this consultant that we hired said from the point that they start due diligence, their team is there to disqualify you. So this due diligence process is a disqualification process, really. Wow. They're looking for reasons to say no, not because they don't want to invest with anybody, but it's easy. It's easier to just look for the bad things. So we go, see, it's no good. We can't work with these people, right? And then they just move on. It's just efficient, I guess. What I should say, it's efficient. Yeah. So he said, it's not just about the data. He said, people on these family office, like due diligence calls, when they ask you a question and you do this, looking up to your left,
they're sizing you up.
Universally a bad sign. If you look up to your left, they think you're lying. Yeah. So like it even gets that like psychological, right? When you're giving them answers or maybe they see something in your data room that they need more information, like how you provide it, when you provide it, like all of it matters. And so when you start thinking of it like that, you can go crazy going, well, man, this could get screwed up pretty easily. Now, realistically, are they all like this? No, probably not. Like this consultant is probably prepping us for worst case scenario. Like, hey, just be careful, right? Like little things. Like I said, hey, when I get into these calls, like what's appropriate attire? Like I normally wear a t-shirt, graphic t-shirt. And I'm not wearing something loose. I'm wearing this usually, right? It's my company. Sure. But he's like, no. He goes, a lot of these family offices are run by, like, for lack of a better term, like old white dudes. And they grew up in an era where you wore a suit. You dressed well for a business meeting. And so we're putting on sport jackets for these calls. Like I'm wearing shorts or sweatpants, but I have a button-up shirt and a sport jacket on. Like stuff like that you wouldn't think of. Like, our friend Bill Allen, right? He's raised tons of money. Do you think he's ever not put on a t-shirt for one of those Zoom calls he did?
No
chance. He always put on a t-shirt, 100%. And if you told him he had to put on a jacket, he'd probably be like, no, I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing it, right?
Yeah, but, so true.
I mean, listen, when in Rome, you gotta fit in with that demographic. You just have to. So, anyways, it's a little different. These are some of the weird little things that I've had to deal with, and then the real biggest thing probably is just the time frame. I talked to you today. You should know by tomorrow if you're going to do this, right? Like that's how I operate. These guys are like, oh, I talked to you today. In a week, we might open your data room, and then a week later, we might maybe open up one of the files. And they told us it's a 6 to 8 week process. Best case.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. Yeah. So I just have to be patient. It's not my best attribute. I'm not a patient guy at all.
Oh man,
it is what it is. This is the business that I've chosen, and I love it. I do love it. Like I love running the fund. That's what I love, right? Like stuffy business meetings are not my favorite, but I'm also lucky. We talked before we started recording about all the presentations we've done. So giving a presentation, giving our pitch deck presentation is not daunting to me like it maybe would have been had I not had the background that I have of presenting on stage and stuff at events. Yeah. Like it's still nerve-wracking, but I'm used to presenting and I'm used to, knowing how to get the right emotion or to like hit the right nerves. Like I'm okay at that. So that part of it is fine, but just the waiting game is tough for me. The waiting game is the worst part. Like we gave access to our data room and like a week and a half later, the person I gave access to said, yeah, it's not working. I can't get in. I was like,
oh my gosh.
I know. I'm like, you just tried to get in. Like, okay, sorry about that. I'll fix it. Like, oh my, but in my mind, I'm going, what? You didn't get in there yet? Like, what? So anyway,
crazy.
It is what it is.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Oh man, such interesting stuff, Mike. Thank you for sharing. Man, it's exciting for sure. It's great to see this next chapter, I guess we'll call it, for you. And man, I look forward to seeing how these conversations go and how you guys continue to grow the company to do big things and definitely fill a gap that's much needed, at least right now. The other cool thing I was thinking is what you're doing right now. You're talking about how it pertains to real estate, but man, it's so much bigger than real estate. And maybe you just stay in real estate, but even if real estate ceases to exist, it's not like overnight you guys are, up Shit's Creek or anything like that. Like, it's like, all right, well, where do we go now? Like,
yeah, I always tell people like we started one fund and then we closed it and started another one, and we can get into another time, but your point's well taken, because the analogy I use is the fund is built on a chassis. That chassis can be used for a lot of things, right? Like if we started another fund and we were investing in like, whiskey barrels or something in Tennessee, like a company, like we could take the chassis that we currently are using and just apply it to a different market. So the fund itself, the way it runs in the background, doesn't care what it's lending to necessarily, right? Me as an operator, my experience is in real estate, so it's easy for me to do that. But the fund chassis can run on any track. It doesn't have to run on a real estate track, right?
Wow.
So
love it.
Maybe sometime in the future.
Yeah, great point. We'll have to dig into that in the future. Well, Mike, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. As we wrap up here, where can our listeners catch up with you, check out more about Express Hard Money and those things?
Yeah, I didn't mention the Express. For our investors, we target a 10% return. We've never failed to return that to our investors in all the years that we've been running. So that's number one. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can go to expresshardmoney.com if you're interested in applying for a loan, like that's for sure. You could also reach out there if you're interested in investing. But if you want to reach out to me directly, you can go to my website, which is mikesimmons.com, and just do a contact me and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast. I want more information about investing in your fund. And I'd be happy to talk to you about that. We didn't really talk about it, but we're always looking for more. We're talking to family offices, but we are talking to those, small, high net worth investors that are in smaller amounts. So yeah, we're always interested in talking.
Awesome. Love it. Well, awesome. Mike, thanks again for being on.
For sure.
For our listeners, until next time, we'll see you.